I've met some of you, not all of you. I know this guy, Nick Schlekeway. I started Amherst Madison in 2013, so I've been around since day zero, and it's been one heck of a ride, I can tell you. I want to come in and talk, not necessarily about myself, but I'm happy to answer questions if you guys have them, mostly about succeeding in real estate. And I approach this, from the frame of a new agent, but I know there's some of you in the room who are certainly not new, so I try to add quite a bit in there that'll be, applicable to the vets in the room as well, and something that you can take with you and have a better year and a better career for it. So, having said that, I'll ask for your forgiveness. My voice is a little scratchy. My little disease factories that we call children got me sick over Christmas, and I'm not sick anymore, but I still don't have a voice. My daughter had a Christmas school play, so she's 6, and in kindergarten. And right before Christmas, she was up on stage with about 60 or 70 other little munchkins. Like, you know where I'm going with this. And I'm watching them all up there, and it's so cute. Everybody's got their cameras out, and I mean, these kids are just coughing on each other, and wiping snot on each other, and you could just see the disease spread like in real time. It was like a petri dish. And I thought everybody in this crowd is going to be sick within 2 weeks, and sure enough, we all were. I never got sick before I had children, and now I do. How many know what I'm talking about? Like, they're just little disease factories, yeah. But we love them anyways. So I want to talk to you guys about truth and illusion. And what I mean by that is, no, it's not a magic show. I'm not going to do anything weird or pull a rabbit out of my hat. But I do want to set up, and I think this is going to be very applicable to you guys that have been in the business for a while. There's a lot of misnomers in real estate. There's a lot of illusions. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of things that are peddled by brokerages, by recruiters, by brokers, by top producers that are just simply not true. And I'm very passionate about digging for truth for myself, because I don't want to waste time on ideas that don't work. And then obviously as a coach and a trainer, I don't want to teach ideas that don't work and teach people dead ends in this business. And there's just quite a few of them that I've run across over the years. And I think that's true in any business, and it's certainly the case in ours. So I'm going to go through these. Stop me if you have questions, please. Raise your hand. I'm happy to stop the presentation to answer a question as we go. So I'm just going to roll right into this. The first one is that real estate is easy money. And it's almost hard for me to grasp how this is still peddled and how this is still an illusion and how people still kind of propagate this, because the dropout rate in our industry is like over 80%. And that's just in the first 2 years, by the way. So before your first reset or recertification in 2 years, well, over 80% of people don't make it. They don't renew their license in 2 years. And I've always kind of held that up next to this illusion and thought, I don't understand how this is. How can people think it's easy money when, more than 75% of people are dropping out in the first 2 years? And then, by the way, something else that's not discussed is between year 2 and year 5, there's another 50% washout rate that happens of the 20% that's left. So make no mistake about it, it's not easy money. And by the way, if you compare those percentages to any new business, self-employed, starting a new company, there's a correlation, right? You're starting your own business. And the reality is that most businesses fail, right? And so that just needs to be something, and I know that might be sobering, but it should be. It should be something that makes you think twice. It should be something that makes you stop and think, how am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to get deals? How, very practically, which I hope is what Launch is teaching you as we progress through it, how do I make money and stay in this business and stick around? And entrepreneurship is the best of, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, is what I say about being an entrepreneur, right? The great thing about being an entrepreneur is you guys are 100% in control of your lifestyle and your income. The horrible thing about being an entrepreneur is you are 100% in control of your lifestyle and your income. And nobody can do it for you, right? You have to do the work, make the plans, take the classes, improve, go on the meetings, make the calls, do the posts, do the content. You have to do it, right? So it's not easy money. The barrier to entry is low, which means there's a lot of competition. So if you're somebody who thrives on competition, you're going to love real estate, right? You're going to love competing. You're going to love getting out there and competing with hundreds, if not thousands of other people, certainly dozens of people at times for the business. Questions about this? I know I'm not starting off with like the most positive gung-ho message here, but this is absolutely an illusion. And where it becomes dangerous is if you think that the business is going to come to you. If you've watched too many episodes of HGTV, if you've watched too many episodes of Millionaire Listing New York, if you think that you're going to be, Ryan Serhant on day 2, you have a problem waiting for you. You're setting yourself up for failure. It is a tough business. Now, it is a business that you can make a ton of money in, yes. You can have a lot of success in. You can become a millionaire in a relatively short period of time. You can become worth $10, $20 million in 10, 15 years if you work hard enough, right? But that comes at a cost. That cost is common with everybody who's an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you can do things that other people can't do. You can take time off and go skiing on a Wednesday. You can go hang out with your family on a Thursday morning. You can do things that somebody who's W-2 can't necessarily do. But there's a price to be paid for that, because it also means that you're working on weekends, you're working nights, you're doing things that other people don't have to do. Right? And I think one of the hardest things to teach, and Mike, I know you would agree with this, is like the operating flow of being an entrepreneur in your day-to-day life. It's one of the things that's so hard to teach people, to impress upon you, to tell you what it's going to be like. You just have to be able to roll with the punches. You got to be able to prospect when you're out shopping for groceries. You have to be thinking about business all the time, but then also not let it consume you and burn you out, and be able to put it aside and rest when you need that. And there is no magic formula for that. It's different for everybody. But that is a flow that you have to figure out and you have to get into to be successful in this business. So business is built, it's not bestowed. Nobody is going to beat a path to your doorstep. It is incredibly difficult to get business, convert clients, get referrals, all the things that we talk about in launch. It's not easy to do. You can do it. Anybody can do it, right? And I'll stop and pause on that for a moment and tell you something about me. So one of the reasons that I developed these training courses and that I'm passionate about training is because I didn't get it, and because I came into this business, everything I'd ever done prior to real estate was making a living with my back and not my brain, and certainly not my mouth. I was in construction. My dad was a builder. I grew up in construction. I was a firefighter. I worked for a concrete company. I was a jock in college. Like, everything I'd ever done was physical in terms of making my living. I never sold anything in my life getting into real estate. Nothing. Like, the most interactive job I ever had in terms of personality was like working at a freaking coffee shop in high school as a barista. Like, I wasn't even a bartender. I didn't even have that to lean on. Bartending is a great training ground to be a real estate agent, by the way. So I came into it from that perspective, and I got hit in the face. I mean, it was so difficult for me. I didn't do a deal for the first 6 to 8 months, which that's not necessarily uncommon, but what was uncommon is I wrote like over 35, I think actually over 40 offers my first 6 months without getting a single acceptance. And I was working with these investors that weren't really investors, that were just tire kickers and time wasters, and they were sending me all over hell and back. I was driving out to Parma, I was driving to Mountain Home, I was driving to Emmett, I was driving to Cascade to make offers on all these properties, and they were lowballing everything. They didn't want to listen. They didn't have any respect for me or for a process. They thought they could get everything for free. And I almost left the business before I even got into it a year. I was almost a statistic because it was so demoralizing, right? And I won't belabor this too much except for to say I figured out some really difficult things the hard way. And I don't want you guys to have to learn those lessons the hard way. Like, all this stuff in your training manuals are lessons that I learned and Mike's learned and the rest of us have learned over the years, so you don't have to learn it the hard way like I did. But what I also learned was, if I can figure out how to sell, anybody can figure out how to sell. Because I had zero training, I wasn't gifted at it naturally, I wasn't somebody that could just go be the life of a party. I couldn't stand up here in front of you right now like I'm doing and give a speech like this. I wasn't good at any of that stuff. I had to learn it all. So if I can do it, trust me when I say you guys can do it. That's the silver lining about this business is, and by the way, it's a frustrating part of this business for some people. I know a lot of people who get into this business who have like this super strong sales pedigree and they worked in corporate sales and they already have money, they're already established, they have a nice car, they have a wardrobe, they have a mouthpiece, they can talk, they can sell, and they come into real estate, and a lot of those people are like the first to get washed out, believe it or not. And it's because they don't like that they have to compete. They don't think that they should have to compete with somebody who didn't even graduate high school and had to take the test 8 times to get their license and is not very polished, but is just a freaking grinder that won't give up, and they get outworked. And there's a lot of people that get into this industry that think that the wage is going to be paid for them because of their background, and they get their ass kicked and they quit. They're one of the first people to quit, right? Because they don't want to compete. So that's the other thing I'll tell you is that it doesn't take some kind of special talent. It just takes grit and never giving up. I did a podcast last night with a guy, had me on his show, and we talked about, like, mostly it was about sports because his podcast is kind of centered around athletics and the lessons that you take out of athletics into life. So we talked about that for like 90 minutes last night. But he asked me at the end of it, like, the one lesson I took out of football that I applied to my life. And I mean, without even hesitating, the lesson was don't quit. Just don't ever quit, no matter what. And you guys, that is this business. If you're somebody that is not going to be denied, if you're not going to take no for an answer, if you're not going to quit, if you're just going to go out every single day and try again and ask and be rejected and ask and be rejected and ask me, you're going to find success. Right? So don't let the difficulty discourage you, but understand that it is your responsibility to promote yourself. Nobody's going to do that for you. And that's hard for some people. That was hard for me. I didn't like self-promotion. It made me uncomfortable. It still makes me uncomfortable to this day. It feels like bragging. It feels like not humility. I really struggled with that for a long time until I finally got my teeth kicked in enough to know, hey, it's either that or go find something else to do. Because no one's going to promote you. Like, you have to promote yourself. Right? And there's such a thing called intelligent self-interest. And that's something that Jim Rohn, and that's R-O-H-N, Rohn, who was a mentor of mine, even though I never met him, he was actually responsible largely for me leaving the fire service and starting this company in 2012, 2013. Excuse me, because I found his YouTube videos. And he's got a great archive on YouTube. I never got to meet him. He passed away before I got the chance. But Jim Rohn had 1,000 lessons for life, but one of them was he talked about intelligent self-interest. And what did he mean by that? He meant that helping other people get what they want is the path to getting what you want. And that's some Zig Ziglar stuff too, for those of you who remember Zig and remember his name and what he taught. And this is getting back to kind of the core of sales, which I have another keynote on that lasts an hour, like what the word sales means, how it's been twisted up and misinterpreted in our society. But what those guys understood was that sales is all about what you give, not what you get. It's all about being helpful. Solving other people's problems will lead to you getting your own problem solved. If you can become a solution for enough people, you never have to worry about money. Like, the money part will take care of itself. And that's what intelligent self-interest is all about is, yes, you're primarily looking out for other people and solving their problems, but you're going to get that reciprocated back to you tenfold. Right? So it's not bestowed, it's built, and you got to go get it. Here's a pretty, I don't know that this is a spoken illusion, but I think it's a subconscious one that we all trick ourselves with. And that's if there's no response, there's no interest. And nothing could be further from the truth. You guys might communicate with a prospect 5 times, 10 times, 30 times and get 0 response. And then on the 31st contact, you're going to get a response and they're going to want to sit down and meet and talk shop with you. You cannot quit just because you're not getting this instant gratification feedback. And this goes for any kind of marketing that you're doing, by the way. It could be an email newsletter, it could be a print piece, it could be social media, phone calls, text messages. You have to focus on you. You have to focus on yourself and your habits and just being consistent with your outbound communications every day. And don't worry about the responses. The responses will come, but they're not going to come right away. There's a lot of ways that this industry will test you. There's a lot of ways that the universe will test you. And this is one of the big ones, is you'll knuckle under, you'll put in the work, you'll put your head down, you'll do everything I've been talking about, and you'll just start executing, sending out the emails, making the calls, doing the handwritten notes, doing the social media posts. You know what's going to happen? Nothing. It's going to be freaking silence. It's going to be deafening silence for a while. You have to stick with it. This isn't like a sprint, it's a marathon. You're probably not going to get any responses for the first couple months you do any kind of marketing. It's going to take 6, 9, 12 months of being consistent before you really start seeing. And this is what's happening. I want you guys to understand this on an energetic level. And you can think this is woo-woo. I don't care. It's real. The universe is seeing how serious you are about what you're doing, is what is going on. Other people, your community, your friends, your relations, your neighbors, the universe at large is waiting for you to quit. It's watching you and it's saying, okay, I see that you've been consistent for a week. What about week number 2? Okay, I've seen that you've done it for a month. Can you do it for another month? And by the way, you guys, that's kind of, there's 2 sides of this, okay? There's a practical side and there's kind of a woo-woo side. The woo-woo energy side, which I totally believe in, is you're being tested by the universe to see if you're gonna quit. And you have to persevere through that in order for things to basically say, yeah, okay, they're serious. They're not gonna quit. They're not gonna be denied. They're gonna keep doing this. So here's the results of what you're looking for. The practical side of it, which is just as true, everybody knows how high the washout rate in this business is. That's not a secret. Your prospects all know that. Your friends all know that. Your family all knows that. So on the practical side of this equation, they're literally expecting you to quit. They're literally expecting you to stop. They're literally watching what you're doing and saying, okay, whatever. Like, I got 6 other buddies that tried this and they all failed. So I'm not going to get super invested in their business. I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to refer, because they're going to quit, like the other 6 guys that I know in the last 10 years that have gotten into real estate and quit. So the same thing's happening on a very practical level. They want to make sure that you're serious and you're there to stay and you're not going to quit before they start pouring their energy into you and sharing and participating and referring to you and doing all the things that you want them to do. Does that make sense? That's a very practical and real thing that's happening in your guys' businesses every single day, is people are expecting you to quit. And as a new agent, or even as an agent who's like, maybe you're kickstarting your business because it's been slow, maybe you moved from another area, there's this lag time of, it's usually anywhere from 3 to 5, 6 months. And that's just the messy middle, it's the pain, it's the grind, you've just got to push through it. Because on the other side of that, there's going to be some people in your life who look at you and say, okay, he's serious. Okay, she's serious. She's here to stay. She's not going to fold. And then they will start engaging with you. Questions about that? Comments about that? I feel like I'm killing you guys. You're quiet, yeah.
It sounds like probation period.
It is kind of like a probation period. Absolutely.
You're testing the company, they test you.
Yeah, and I love you say that, because it's a job in some ways like any other job. Like, you really do have this break-in probation period. It's just kind of hidden and nobody talks about it. And that's part of the reasons I do these illusions speeches and lessons, is I want to bring some of this stuff out so we can talk about it. It's not as scary anymore if you know what the hell is going on. But yeah, that's a big part of it, is it's just like a probationary period. And every industry has them, you know, and every relationship has one. I mean, you know, the second date you go on with somebody, you don't, I mean, I hope you don't just pour your guts out on the table and tell them every single detail about yourself. Like, no, none of us do that. Like, we all hold some of these private special things in until, like, we know. If you have a relationship history like mine, your knowing is broken. It took me a long time to find a good one, but I finally did, thank God. Yeah, but it takes a long time to build that trust, you know. And make no mistake about it, you guys, it's a lot of trust for someone to work with you as an agent or refer you as an agent. You know, sometimes it's more trust to refer than it is to actually work with you themselves. Depending on someone's personality, they might be more anxious about referring a friend to you than they would be about even working with you. Because what if you screw it up? How does that reflect on them? Ask yourself that question. Have you guys ever made a referral? Mike, have you ever made a referral that turned out bad, where the person that you referred to did a shitty job?
Yeah, then you just apologize over and over and over.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good, does it? Yeah, so everybody's afraid of that. Everybody's afraid of that. Any other questions on that? Make sense? All right, what's next? Yeah, I call the big why the big lie. If you think that you can just like get some poster board out and print some pictures off the internet and cut them out and glue it to it, or have a vision board, or have something that was commonly peddled called the big why, and that's going to like propel you to success, you're kidding yourself. And that's for many different reasons. I would say we all have a lot of reasons why we do things. We don't have just one. There really is no such thing, in my opinion, as a big why. I think the whole thing is bullshit. And I've seen it ruin more people than I've seen it help. Because they sit down in a seminar and they come up with this big why, but it's not actually their real motivation. It's usually just what they're comfortable saying in a group of people and what's socially acceptable and what they feel comfortable divulging. They're not even in touch with the real reasons why they're doing what they're doing, and so inevitably they fail because they're not in touch with their motivation. And oh, by the way, even if you do have a big why, it changes every like 6 months because your life changes, your needs change, your priorities change. My encouragement to you guys is to get in touch with your calling, with your innermost desires, which you might not be. If they're your innermost desires, it would be very uncomfortable for you to say them in a group setting. I'll just tell you that right now. If it really is something that is in your core, that motivates you, drives you, is a calling for you, you're not going to want to stand up in front of a group of people and talk about it. It's going to be very uncomfortable. So just that criteria alone invalidates what 90% of people put on their piece of paper as their big why. Right? And the other thing I'd encourage you to do is come up with all the reasons why you got out of bed this morning and why you're sitting in this class. Because the reality is there's dozens, right? It's health, wealth, it's income. It might be your kids, it might be your family, it might be specific goals you have for a lifestyle or to buy something or to have security. It might be to prove somebody wrong. It might be to prove somebody right. It might be to prove yourself wrong. It might be to prove yourself right. There's a lot of reasons and motivators that we have for getting up every day and doing what we do. The thing that I think is the most powerful with reasons and discipline and finding a calling instead of just relying on short-term motivation is if you can identify these things and keep them in front of you consistently, that can be a powerful driver for you and a source of energy like a battery for your life. But you've really got to do a lot of digging and a lot of hard work to figure out what that is, and it's going to change. So it's almost like doing a business plan every year. It's like a restorative process that you have to continually go back to. And you got to keep it in front of you. Right? You have to keep these things in front of you on a weekly or at least a monthly basis and remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. But it's never one singular reason. You guys picking up what I'm putting down there? All right. The brokerage thing is always an interesting. The right environment shapes your future. I firmly believe that we're all creatures of our environment. I think that we're all reflections of our environment. And for a long time, I thought that the key to success was habits. And I've come to realize that there's an even bigger key to success than habits, which is the environment that you put yourself in. And the reason I say that is because I've been around now long enough to watch people who have great habits and great energy, but they're in a bad environment, and it always deteriorates. It might take a month, it might take 6 months, it might take a couple years, but eventually you'll see that person's attitude and habits and performance start to be pulled down by their environment. And conversely, I've seen people that frankly are not very energetic, that don't have big reasons, that don't have great habits, and you put them in an environment of producers and motivated people and driven people and energetic people and positive people, and you'll watch them accelerate to join the group and to have the same level of energy and expectations that the rest of the group has. And the thing about real estate is you guys have to choose your environment. It's not just your brokerage, it's the people you work with, it's the team you surround yourself with, it's the vendors you surround yourself with, it's friends, it's family, spouse, right? Like you have to choose your environment, but your brokerage is a big part of that. So the thing that I always say about the brokerage selection is your clients may or may not care a lot, but you should, because it does impact you and it does impact your ability to succeed or fail, and the environment factor is the biggest piece of that. The other thing I'd say about the clients is that your typical John and Jane seller or buyer probably doesn't care what brokerage you're at. First-time buyers really don't care or even know. One of the things you'll discover in our business, though, is that the more affluent or experienced a client is, the more they care. So when you go out there and start talking to builders, developers, investors, they know exactly who is who in the brokerage world, and they know the differences between the companies, and they do care. And the same is true of luxury clientele. Like they know the differences, they know there is a difference, they want to work with an agent who has a great team around them. And whether you want to admit it or not, your brokerage is part of the team that is around you. So I always point that out because as agents, like who do we all end up ultimately want to do business with? The builders, the developers, the investors, the luxury clientele, like all of us do. And whether you want to be a luxury agent or not, doesn't really matter. If you're somebody who wants to work with investors, you'd rather go work with 2 investors that are going to supply you with 50 transactions a year than beat your head against the wall on one-off deals with one-off part-time investors. Right? I mean, we all would. It's just a more efficient business model. So that's the irony and kind of the misleading part of that illusion is as you start working your way up in the ranks in real estate and you want to go work with some of these bigger fish, they care, right? So I'm not going to belabor that, but it's just something for you to be aware of. Illusion number 6 is clients only care about price and commission. You guys, this is a self-perpetuating lie that we cause as agents. And what I mean by that is, as a group, I'm not talking about you guys individually, I'll say collectively as an industry, we don't always do a great job of selling our services. We don't always do a great job of performing our job. Marketing. Let's just stop and talk about marketing for a second. Like marketing real estate is an art. It is a skill. It is something that costs money that you have to invest time and money into. It's something you need to get very curious about learning how to do. Watching what the top producers do and mimicking them and learning how to put your own twist on it. I just took over a development in Middleton, and the developer, it's 25 lots out there and about $1 million price point for spec homes, but the developer's firing their agent because they're not following through on the marketing that they promised they were going to do for the development. And this is a story that is just seen like, dude, especially with marketing, over and over and over again in this industry. I've seen it happen thousands of times. Agent makes a bunch of promises to get the listing. They get the listing, they put it in the MLS, they put a sign in the yard, and they move on to the next prospect, right? And it's why a lot of agents have a bad reputation. It's why agents sometimes have a reputation for being slick and being salespeople that don't care about the relationship and they're only trying to get the next transaction. It's because they don't follow through on their promises. And another classic example I always give is you make a bunch of promises on what you're going to do to market the home, put the home on the market, and you get an offer on day 1 and the home goes under contract. So you say, well, I don't need to do any of this marketing because I got the home under contract. Wrong. If you promised to do all that marketing when you were sitting down in the listing appointment, you need to follow through on your promises and do what you said you were going to do. Because even if you get that house sold, the fact that you didn't follow through, see, we lie to ourselves because sometimes we're not called out on it. The seller is usually not going to call you out on it. They're usually not going to say, well, you promised to do all these other things and you didn't do them, but they're thinking it. And that will impact whether or not they refer you. And oh, by the way, if that deal that you have happens to fall out of escrow, and now you're on the market for 45 days and you're dead in the water from a marketing perspective and you didn't do all the things you have to do and you don't have any backup offers, now you're probably going to get fired. Right? So the reason that people say clients only care about price and commission is because we haven't given them anything else to freaking care about. Right? Like you go on the listing appointment and you don't talk about services, you don't talk about marketing, you don't talk about negotiations, you don't go through these big 10 books and in a detailed manner explain all the things that you're going to do for them. You just go up and this is what a lot of agents do. I'm not shitting you. Like, they'll literally just show up, they do a half-assed CMA 5 minutes before the appointment. They'll show up, they'll kind of walk around the house, they'll sit down, chit chat about nothing for half an hour and say, well, I think you could probably sell it for this number. And the seller's like, okay, well, what's your commission? And that's it. Like, that's the conversation. That's the listing appointment. It's a piss poor way to do business. It's not effective. It's not going to make you a top producer. You're going to lose a ton of listings. But that's what leads to this thing where clients only care about pricing. Commission. Well, that's the only thing that you brought to the table. Like, that's the only thing that you discussed. Remember, you're the professional. You're the advisor. You're the one dictating the pace and the process. So whatever you bring to the table is what's going to determine what you talk about usually. Like, they might have a question or two, but if you don't go through these books and understand them and understand all this material Mike's going to teach you, the more stuff you can bring to the table, the better, you guys. Right? So they do care about more than this. Sometimes they don't think you're qualified to talk about anything more than this because of what you bring to the table or what you don't. And that's a sad situation. Questions about that? Comments about that? How many of you have heard some of these things before or thought them before, even if you haven't heard them? Yeah, I think everybody has. And some of them you haven't heard, but you've definitely thought. And that's why I'm trying to kind of take this inner monologue and bring it out into the open so we can be honest about it. A victim mentality, this goes back to what we talked about on the first illusion, but I want to point it out specifically that the victim mentality will get you out of this business faster than anything else. You guys, you're not victims. You all chose to be here. You all know the risks starting your own business. You all decided to get into an industry that has a high washout rate. You've been warned that business is not just going to show up on your doorstep, and if you've been doing it longer than a few months, you already know that, right? You're not a victim. And the more you understand that and practice that in your day-to-day life, the more successful you'll be in real estate. It is your fault that you don't have business. Period. It is your fault. It's not my fault. It's not Mike's fault. It's not the brokerage's fault. It's not interest rates. It's not your lender. It's not title and escrow. It's not your cousin that talks shit about you on social media. It's you. It is your fault. It is your responsibility if you don't have the kind of business that you want or if you don't have any business. I know that it sucks. Trust me. It sucks to hear, but it's just the truth. And the reality, like, have you guys ever done we'll probably do one actually as a part of launch, but a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You know, every time I do a SWOT analysis for my business, when I get to the T, the threats, I just write down a 2-letter word, me. That's really my only threat for my business. It's me. That's the threat. That's the problem. Because all this other stuff, this macroeconomic stuff, with the economy, with currency, with interest rates, with bond values, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go side to side. It doesn't freaking matter, because I'll tell you what, every day there's thousands of people running around this valley looking to transact real estate. And that number of people might go up 25%, it might go down 10%, but it's there. The business is there. The business is out there. There's people doing deals right now. The only question is, are they doing deals with you, or are they going to do deals with somebody else down the road? And I don't know about you guys, but that is scary, but it's also it's exciting as hell. I love that. I love that environment. I love to be in environments where I know there's business happening and it's up to me to go out there and get it and get in the middle of as many deals as I can. And that should be your objective. Your objective should be to get in as many meaningful real estate conversations as possible with as many people as possible. Get yourself involved in as many deals as you can, one way or the other. Whether you're referring to somebody, whether you're getting somebody referred to you, whether you're talking to somebody about value, whether you're consulting with somebody about their landscaping, it doesn't freaking matter. You just need to get in as many real estate conversations as you possibly can and get yourself involved in as many deals as you can. Go with other agents on listing appointments. Go with each other on listing appointments. Shadow people. You got to just stick your nose into this business. And if you do, you're going to be rewarded for it. This is a business, you guys, that rewards action. It rewards action and it punishes inaction. You cannot just sit behind your desk all day long and be successful. You've got to get your ass out there and just get into it. And it's amazing what starts happening for you when you do that. Last but not least, we all fall into this trap. And the example I always give for this is relationships. And it's like going back to the same dead-end relationship. And I think most of us have made this mistake, or going back to somebody that has literally told you they're not interested in you, or going back to somebody that you know is toxic for your life. And this can be a romantic relationship, it can be a friend, it could be anything. We all, I think, can relate to that situation because we've been there, right? And in business, we do the same thing. Maybe even worse. But what we tend to do is we have this group of people and we just think the way that I get business out of this group of people is to twist it and turn it and say this and that didn't work and I'm going to say that. I'll say more things, I'll say fewer things, I'll say different things, I'll say new things. But you guys, the reality of success is if you're not getting anything out of this group of people, then you freaking need to move on and go find a new group of people. And one of the things that I want to make sure that you get this because it's really important. I always thought, and this is coming from somebody who had no background in sales, right? I didn't really know what sales was all about. I was so afraid of like how much I had to learn about what to say. Does that resonate with you guys? Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like, I was very overwhelmed when I was getting in this business of like, oh my God, I have to figure out like 1,000 scripts. Like I have to learn what to say in all these different situations. And I was paralyzed by that. I think a lot of agents are. Like you think, and then like you'll go to a class that I'm teaching or that Boucher's teaching or that, you know, Vicky Habon or somebody who's a high producing agent is teaching, and they're just like vomiting all of this stuff on you. And it's totally overwhelming. And you're just like, oh my God, like how could they possibly be this dialed in on all these different scenarios? And then what happens is you'll go watch that person on an appointment or you'll go watch them teach another class and they say the same thing. And then you go watch them teach another class or you go shadow them on another appointment and they say the same thing, maybe with one or two little variations. And what you start figuring out is these people are saying old things. They don't have as many tricks in their box or bag of tricks. They don't have as many tools in their toolbox as you think they do. It's an illusion. And you guys, some of the best speakers of all time, like the Jim Rohns and the Tony Robbins and the Zig Ziglars, are a great example of this. When you start studying these guys and you like go to multiple seminars, John Maxwell, any of them, you only have to go to 2 or 3 seminars before you start hearing the same stories and the same lessons and the same shit over and over and over again. And then you almost go through this period of disillusionment where you're like, oh, this guy's a hack. Like he only has like 5 scripts. But that's not it. What it is you can only be really good at a few things. You can't be really good at 50 different scripts and dialogues and strategies, but you can be really good at 5. And I use Matt as an example, and he would have no issue with me saying this. I'm not outing him. It's just the reality of being a top producer. He only has 4 or 5, really, when you get right down to it. And there's variations and tweaks on each one of them that he uses for the audience that he's speaking to, but he only has a few. And I don't have very many either. You can't, because the more you have, the sloppier you are at delivering them, right? In order to really perfect something, this is one of the things I struggle with because I get bored easy. And when I'm speaking and I'm teaching, I always like to do new things and different things, but that's not disciplined. Like the discipline is actually scripting out a message and delivering it over and over and over and over and over again so that you can just be polished and clear and snappy with your delivery, which improves learning on the part of your audience. And it's the same thing in sales. So the secret to generating business and then also to converting that business because you're competent and confident in what you're saying is to figure out what you want to specialize in, how you want to present yourself, how you want to talk about who you are and what you do, and hammer it again and again and again, and perfect your message again and again and again. It's not about learning 100 scripts. It's about learning like 6. Having a couple different words you can plug in or plug out and getting very good at it. That's what'll make you lethal as an agent. And then what makes you really lethal is when you start going to new people constantly to deliver this message. And instead of beating up this one group until they're sick to death, they're sick and tired of hearing from you, you're going and spreading this to all these different people. And of course, and Mike is going to talk to you about plugging people in your CRM and doing drip campaigns and staying in touch. I'm not saying you don't follow up because you have to. I'm not saying you constantly move to new people because you don't. But there comes a point where a prospect is not going to transact. You guys, this is one of the biggest financial decisions people are going to make in their entire life. And here's something that's pretty unique about this business, and this is important to catch on to. You can sell somebody a $50 item even if they don't need it. You can. You can sell it. You can convince them. You can sell them a $500 item. If you're really good at slinging cars, you can probably sell somebody a $150,000 item that they don't really need. But if you know how to twist it and how to spin it and how to appeal to their ego or how to challenge them and say, what, like you're too weak, you can't make this decision without your wife here, why don't you be a man and buy this thing? You can figure out how to twist somebody up and get them to make a decision. You are not going to do that with a $750,000 house or a $2 million. It's not going to happen. If they're not ready to go, they're not going to transact. Period. End of story. So real estate is a unique type of sales from that perspective. You have to have a feel, and the only way to develop this is to have a lot of these interactions and to have a mentor and have coaches and have people you can call and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I've done. This is how they're responding. Do I need to move on or not? Because there's a lot of people that, yeah, you need to kind of put them on a long-term keep in touch program in your CRM, touch base with them so every once in a while, call them 4 times a year, email them a couple times a month, get in their mail, but move on to this in your day-to-day prospecting and the things that you're doing with your phone calls and your DMs every day. And that's an art, and it's an art that you'll only learn by getting out there in the field every day and doing it. But what you can't do is have one small group of people and just beat them to death. And then say, well, this isn't going to work. They're not transacting. I must not be very good at sales. And luck plays into this with some people. Like you see some people come to this industry and they just start doing deals right away. A lot of them are lucky enough to be in an age group or be in a group of individuals that just happens to be buying at that time in their life. And if that's you, then more power to you. But for most of us, we got to expand our circle. We got to go meet new people. Right? We got to go find people that are doing a deal. We got to go find people that are ready to transact. And there are people out there. So you can't get discouraged. And I've gone through periods where I've gotten discouraged because I felt like, man, nobody's doing any deals right now. Like the market sucks. This sucks. No one's going to transact. Interest rates are too high. That's a bullshit lie, you guys. There are people out there doing deals every day. You just got to find them. You just got to find them. So I believe that's the 8 questions for me before I give the time back to Michael.
Okay, thank you, man.
Absolutely. You bet. Nothing? All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate you.
Yep.